Good morning, everyone. This is Beth Guide with Talking Purple. I'm trying to make sense common again. So, we got a lot going on. We got State of the Union. We've got bombing in Iran. We've got primaries here in Texas. There's so much. I don't even know how to keep up with everything. So, I'm going to touch on my points for the week and we'll see. I may have to do one midweek again. But um, I watched the State of the Union address, and there was a lot of parts about it. Trump was on a roll. He's got a lot of accomplishments. And if you're on the Democrat side, maybe you don't agree with them. But I think if you're on the American side, which is what I think most of us are, I think I'm going to keep saying there's 80% in the middle and there's 20 on the left and 20 on the right. I get it doesn't add up. 20 that I think there's 20% that are, and then there's a bleed on the edge. So that's how I get to my 80. So, but I do think that we have 80% of us are in the middle of how we view the country. And we've got these 20% on the fringes that keep dragging everybody in alternate directions. So immigration is an interesting problem. Um, I I look at these things and I'm looking at the comments in my own scroll, and Facebook's algorithm has done a great job um, of putting us in front of Republicans and Democrats. And I can tell that based on how my scroll is formulating because I get messages from the Democrat side of it and I get messages from the information in the scroll of what it thinks I would like. Because I've kept this podcast as up the middle as I possibly could. Um, so when I say this, the immigration topics that I have discussed is overwhelming support of the word illegal. There seems to be very little pushback because everybody understands the word illegal. And I think that a majority of the country is law-abiding citizens that want to go to work. They want to make sure their families are okay. They may believe in, supporting global initiatives for climate. They may believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion. They may believe in all kinds of different things. But at the end of the day, they want their kid to go to school. They want their kid to get an education. They want to have peace. They want to go to work and they don't want to be bothered. And they understand that laws in society are required so that you don't have anarchy. Okay. And I really think that goes for both sides of this situation. I think the Democrats as a party are misreading the tea leaves on immigration. And in fact, if you go back and you look at what has been said through the years and over time, you're going to see that everybody was reasonable about it. Everybody understands you can't have people breaking in the country. That goes from Chuck Schumer, that goes for Barack Obama, that goes for Joe Biden. They all have had comments, Hillary Clinton, they've all had commentary and comments that you cannot have wild, no law immigration, that people can just walk in the country and come here, and that's just it. It is not a viable situation. So I think they're misreading and they're going too far on immigration and what that looks like and what we should be doing. Cleaning up a mess, going on a diet, enforcing the rules in your own house. As anybody that's a parent, they know that's not easy and there's a lot of pushback. If I'm on a diet, I know that it's hard to sometimes stay on the wagon, which is why I'm overweight, among other reasons. Um, so I understand that solving this problem, there's no easy solution. Or there's not an easy solution presently on the table because I really do think there is an easy solution to all of this. Now, what I will say is when I say this, I get a lot of pushback in my feed about, well, they're illegal, you shouldn't be supporting. What I'm supporting is a work visa program of some sort that gets reviewed every 5 years. If you want to come here and you want to be a worker and you're gainfully employed, there's a program for you. I also wonder, and I've said that if any of them want to become legal residents, let them become legal residents. And we just don't want you to have the right to vote because I feel like that's always been the playbook of I can't get these people to vote. Um, I can't get people to vote for the Democrat side of the aisle. So I'll import the world's impoverished and assume that they're going to vote Democrat. And what I will say is, I think they've missed the mark on that as well, because most Hispanics are Catholic, they're family based, they do not fit the mold of a typical Democrat voter in 2026. I mean, maybe in 1966, yes, but in 2026, no. And that's a big deal. So I think there's a lot of misconceptions going on here about all of this and what it is. I'm going to come back to immigration in a second, um, because I really do think the people that are complaining, the lawmakers that are complaining that they didn't get the memo on what their job description is, and that their job description is to be legislators, to make laws. So if they don't like what's going on, make a law. But don't not stand up when you say, are you for American citizens? Every one of you people should have stood up, and everybody should stand up for American citizens. That's your job. You represent us. I don't know of anybody other than Illa Omar that lives in a district that is not American citizens. And I say her because it seems like we have um, an imbalance in Minnesota in some of these communities that she's in charge of. The other thing is when the United States hockey team, and I want to preface this. I had a customer this week that came to me and he wanted to talk to me about what do you do when you have an ambitious young adult? How do you make sure that you foster an environment to grow that ambition rather than to squelch it? When you have the Olympic hockey team win a gold medal, that's something that they haven't done since I was in grammar school. I mean, I'm 60 or I'm going to be 60. Um, why are we not celebrating that? Why are we not embracing that? Why is it hard for you to wrap your hands around it? And why, when we're chanting USA in the Capitol building of the United States of America, I have to have Rashida Tlaib sitting there chanting KKK? I mean, I don't know where the disconnect is. I don't know where the disconnect is with these districts. And I don't know why some of these people think it's okay to behave in this manner and that they think that they're they're challenged to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. If you can't do that, you don't belong there and you should not be there. I don't know what's wrong with their districts, although I will say in my district, I've got a bit of a primary challenge going on now, and everybody wants to tell us what they think about it. But at the end of the day, I mean, my district has some really desperate needs that our present congressman is filling. And there's no assurances from anybody else that that's going to be any other way. So we are supporting him wholeheartedly. He has supported us. We're supporting him. But people from outside this district seem to know what's better. So maybe I'm talking out of both sides of my face because I really would like everybody that doesn't have a dog in the hunt in CD2 to get out of CD2 and stop telling us what you think, Ted Cruz. Because, I mean, I can make an argument for all of you that this is money driven and that money is the root of all of this. And maybe the money is the root in Illa Omar's case too, because I think I saw something go by that said spending for autistic kids went from $1 million to $300 million from 2017 to present. There's no reason we went from $1 million to $300 million in defense of autistic kids. It's just not viable. So it's a baked in corruption thing, if you ask me. The other thing I was struck by was the Democrat response to the state. I always like to listen to both sides because I really think that there's your side, there's my side, and then there's the truth. Okay. So I try to stay with my journalism integrity and try to keep it up the middle as much as possible. So some of the things that she hit on were the tariffs. And collectively there seems to be that some of the tariffs got pushed back on the American public, and that number runs anywhere from $1,000 a person to $2,500 a person, depending on who you talk to. Now, I think I have to say that people that have been buying foreign cars and have been paying higher for those cars for a lot of years, which is why I drive a Japanese car. I always have, I always will. I prefer them. Um, so with that said, I've always paid an import tax tariff on that car as long as I was buying one that wasn't assembled here in the United States. Now, Nissan has plants, Infiniti has plants in Tennessee, Toyota has them in Tennessee. Um, so it kind of has mitigated some of that, but for years this is not. So it's not, they're using it and holding it up, and yeah, maybe it has. But here's one thing that I did notice that they were talking about the cost of goods and the price of food. And some of it, if we want to talk to tariffs, I don't have enough economic expertise to dissect that. I guess at some point I'll go learn about tariffs. But what I will say is this. When you go to McDonald's and you raise the wage of McDonald's person from $10 to 17 to $20, you can't still charge $2 for a Big Mac. And I think labor and what was done with the whole, well, we need to make $20 an hour. We need to make $15 an hour. That whole segment that went on during COVID that they kept telling everybody what they needed to make, and we needed a minimum wage that was $15 an hour because it's not livable. Well, on no earth and planet should a minimum wage ever be a livable wage. That's what your entry point is for starting people. If your ambition is to make minimum wage, then there's a different problem, if you ask me. But we've had all of this, and you've driven the cost of labor up. So the price of goods, it's going to be very difficult to bring those price of goods back down because you've raised the cost of labor. And it's not a matter of, well, business owners, they're just getting rich. Trust me when I say, when hard times come, I'm the first one to cut their salary. Okay? It's the first step I take is cut my salary. So I don't want to have the misconception that small business owners are out there raking in money and making people work at sweatshop hours. They're trying to make their business work for what they have and the expenses that they have. So 90 million of us are small business owners. So one third of the country are small business. They're not even small. They're not even mid-sized business. They're small business. They're little baby cottage industry businesses. Okay. One and two people, computer repair, bagel shops, small business owners that barely make enough to keep the doors open. Not complaining, it's a way of life. But let's understand that. So that was the first thing that jumped out at me is that if we're complaining about the price of things are not going back down, Trump said he was going to fix everything in a minute. And yeah, he did. But I mean, I was smart enough to say, well, you're not going to be able to, you may be able to fix the price of energy, but you're not going to be able to fix the price of labor because that genie's out of the bottle and nobody's going to want to go back to $10 an hour. So labor has driven up, labor unions have driven up the cost of goods and services. I mean, and we have to understand how those things are interconnected. Um, so that was the first thing that jumped out at me that I kind of may not want to make a comment on. And the other thing, there was two things, and they were kind of a sentence and a paragraph wrapped up together. And it was talking about safety. And this is where, again, I say there's 80% of us standing in the middle, and there's 20% on the fringes. We all want to live in safe neighborhoods. We all want to have safe places for our children to go. We want to be able to work at night and not have to worry about coming out to our car and getting raped or killed. That's a fact. That's just not arguable. But the fact of the matter is that one party in this country has worked very hard to undermine the safety. And I don't think that they realize that these things are related. I just, because when they say we want to have a safe environment, I don't think that they want to have an unsafe environment. But I don't think they understand the causality that if you let a criminal element of mostly men into the country, unvetted, unfettered, that it's not going to be a good outcome. Because even if they're not criminals, the culture is different. The laws are different. The norms are different. Women are, in some of those places, women are still a possession. Okay. They're not people that are of our, and I don't mean this in a better or worse, but in a lot of cases, the culture is different. So they're not of the same mindset we are. They don't believe in, like I said, women are still possessions in some of in some of the South American countries. They're there to serve their husbands. Um, if there's people that are listening that want to be served, maybe you should go to the south of the border. You know, it's kind of funny to me how like the Democrats will take up for certain groups. Trust me, if I went to Iran, I'd probably be drugged behind a car and killed based on their government. So we're supporting things like we supported the Taliban. We Taliban, America bad, Taliban good. All right, Taliban wants kids, women to not drive cars, not have an education, not go to school. They mutilate body parts. Um, so I don't quite sometimes understand, or maybe I think they don't understand. I think the intention is good, but the execution is bad. All right. Well, that's another thing people keep saying to me. Do I not know my heritage and my ancestors? I do know I got on a plane in Sicily and I flew to the United States, and that's how I became an American citizen. I don't have some long genealogy of people. Um, I got on a plane and came here. Now I'm a citizen because I did it right and I did it the way you're supposed to do it. Um, and I'm glad I'm a citizen because that's really what I want. Okay, so back to Spamberger for a second. So safety. She made a comment on safety, and I thought it was a very striking comment because I do believe that they believe they want safety. No doubt about that. I don't think that they put a cause and effect or a causality to understand that they are not that their immigration policies under Biden did not foster a safe America. They're the party that have let criminals out on these no money bonds, reconnaissance, releasing people on their own reconnaissance. If I murder you and you release me on my own recognizance, do you really think I'm coming back to the courthouse to come back on a different day? If I'm a repetitive violent offender, do you really think I'm coming back to come to court for my day in court? I'm long gone. I'm not coming back. So again, what you're saying is in direct opposition to the behavior that you're having. And then I saw this other thing that says they were taking mothers away off they're taking mothers away from their children. That we have this policy in this country of doing that. Okay. So, first of all, those children, although they're American citizens, if their parents are deported, that has to be reconciled. Now, the kids are legal, the parents are not. If the parents were in another country, the kid could sponsor the parent to come into the country. There's ways they work this out within the system that they could do so legally. Y'all could get on a plane, go back to Mexico, and then because the kid's an American citizen, he has the right to bring his family into the country. So that's the right way to do it. Get on the plane, go home, come back under that provision until that provision gets changed. Okay, so if you have an anchor baby, but and I understand that's an overly simplified production of the situation or representation of the situation. I understand that I'm being overly simplified. But the point of the matter is, and I come back to again, legislate the solutions. That's what your power is. So instead of complaining, fix it. And I think that's what I keep coming back to over and over and over again. So, yes, we can all be sad that children and parents are being split, but I'm a solutions person. I'm a problem solver. If I saw that problem, the first thing I would do is I would say, okay, what are the laws on the books? Can they be utilized to solve this problem? I know as an Italian American that if I had family in Italy, I could sponsor them to come to the United States and start them into the citizenship process. It's a thing that it's a right that citizens have that in this circumstance. Now there is a piece of this that has to do with whether you're naturalized or not. Um, all of this should be legislated, adjudicated, and laws written to fix the problem. All right. Women voting was illegal until they wrote a law and said women could vote. Drinking alcohol was illegal. These were constitutional amendments, but drinking alcohol, buying alcohol, making alcohol was all illegal. I just bought a new bottle of Maker's Mark last night. So you fix problems by either creating laws or removing laws. You don't just complain about them and then make a mockery of the country all over the place. You need to support the country and you need to come up with solutions. And I'm going to go back to, and I'm going to remind everybody that when Donald Trump revoked the Dreamer policy, all right, um, he said, bring me legislation and I will sign it, bar none. I'm not going to fight you on it, but I need you to bring me legislation. I swear both sides want the issue because it's a wedge issue. They do not want to fix the problem. They need to fix the problem because this is out of friggin' control, in my opinion. Okay, so that's that story. All right. Um, I want to talk about Montgomery County in Texas because that's another crazy situation going on. We have some people up there, and it's spilling over into Harris County. And because I'm right on the border, we are affected by some of this. Okay, but for starter number one, um, you guys need to get along. There is not a who is the most Republican, who's the least Republican. I really feel like one of the things that we have going on here is that we would rather lose on principle than win and fix the problem. Again, I'm a solutions-based situation. So I'm not going to lose on a principle so I can stay true to my principles. I'm going to understand the system and I'm going to fix the problem. And this whole rhino discussion of who's a rhino and who's a this, let me cut to the chase on this. All right. And who's not conservative enough? Who made anybody the judge and jury of who's conservative enough? And that's the problem that they're having in Montgomery County. They're trying to out conservative each other to the point that they're causing, well, you're not a conservative enough. You're a rhino. All right. What does that mean exactly? Okay. And I think what it keeps coming down to, at least on my from my estimation of it all, okay, is that if you want to be a big tent party, if you want to be broad reaching, if you want to work to collaborate to bring about solutions, somehow those concepts have become nasty concepts. Working across the aisle or working to come up where everybody is working together is a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing because I think everybody has to work together because we all live here. Um, it's kind of like sharing your house. You got to get along with the people you share your house with. We happen to share a country with people. And as long as we're doing that, I think we need to kind of try to figure out where we align and then what do we do to reconcile the differences. So we have a lot of that going on. But Montgomery County is jumping way too far. You're not Republican enough. You're not this enough. You're not Christian enough. Who is anybody to decide who is what, where, why, when, and how? And there's a local guy here, and he's actually getting some national attention about all of this. But he went to a meeting and they said they went up to him with a camera and asked him if he was a spy and then called him a rhino. I think we're throwing that term around too loosely. I think we're not. I think when I, I understand John Cornyn's a rhino. Okay, there's no two ways about it. Now, do I want to say John Cornyn is a Rockefeller Republican? Yeah, I probably want to say that, except that I think three-quarters of you listening have no idea what a Rockefeller Republican is. Um, I don't even want to say he's a Bush Republican because there is a definite definition between a Bush Republican, which seemed to be getting tarred and feathered with the Rhino label. There's also the establishment, okay? And the establishment exists on both sides, and it's a fundamental group that just their whole being is to keep government in charge. So why don't we talk about policies and principles and stop with the name calling? I know some of the people up in Montgomery County that are being said, you're a rhino. No, you're not a rhino. They're just not part of the good old boy corruption network that exists in Montgomery County. And if you understand that Montgomery County is ruled by the people that it is literally um, the Wild West up there. And if you understand that, then you'll get the fact that there's reasonable people that want to work for solutions. They don't have a price tag. They can't be bought and sold. And then we have these bunch of people that are trying to hold on to yesteryear and remain in the good old boys network. It's the same. The guy that's up there now is the same one that told me to let the men worry about my neighborhood, whether it was going to flood or not, and then called me little lady. I laugh at that because anybody knows me knows that the term me and little lady generally don't go together in the same sentence. Um, if nothing else, because of my New York background. Just I'm too brash to be little lady down here in Montgomery County, Texas, in the backwoods of the sticks. I mean, some of these people are still shooting, BBs into cans on a fence on a Saturday for fun. So, as I look at all of this and I say all of this, that Montgomery County's messing a lot of things up because they're setting a really bad precedent. And I think we have some of that going on in the Republican Party. Um, the race for county chair here is kind of getting a little bit more hostile than what I would like, and then I wish to see. If you think the Republicans should be a broad tent party similar to the coalition that Donald Trump has put together, because Donald Trump is a solutions-based person, whether you like him or not like him, I don't care. You may not like his solutions, but at the end of the day, he is a very results oriented person. So I appreciate that because I'm a results oriented person. Okay. You will never find me talking about something and then not have a plan to go out and fix it or not have a contact that I can call to address it. Um, by the way, I'm going to say this, and there's only going to be a few people that are going to understand what I'm saying. I'm really happy to hear that we're putting a dog park in Kingwood on the Humble ISD grounds and not on the Elm Grove flooding grounds. And I'm really glad that I have friends because the end result has been exactly what it should have been. And I'll just leave it there. So the other thing I want to talk about is the Harris County elections. Now, I've been talking about CD2 a whole heck of a lot. I'm Kingwood cannot afford somebody from Montgomery County. They're still all they're talking about is Hurricane Harvey. And until somebody talks to me in anything other than Hurricane Harvey, you don't get it. And you're not putting the time in to get it. Um, there's a lot of problems in this community. And Mr. Rehack has done an exceptional job trying to get those on the radar. Uh, he has on our congressman's radar. On anybody that seems to be running, they don't seem to understand the complexity, nor do they want to. They want to argue with us and yell at us and scream at us in parking lots and tell us we don't know. Um, the other thing is Colony Ridge. And this goes for a lot of people. This just doesn't go for um, the CD2 election. All right. Colony Ridge is a cluster. It is a cesspool. It is an illegal enclave. It was done and it was built on a lot of conservative money. And that's why I don't have a lot behind being a conservative. I'm a constitutionalist. All right. I'm not a fundamentalist. And I feel bad that the word conservative is starting to become fundamental and not constitutional. I think the Tea Party, knowing my Tea Party friends, they would say that they're constitutional, except that the fundamentalists within the Republican Party have grabbed a hold of that apparatus and are trying to steer it in the wrong direction in Montgomery County. Limited government, all right? But there's so much corruption. So the money coming out of Montgomery County helped fund Colony Ridge. I've got two people running for Congress that they just want to scream and tell everybody, we're conservative, except you supported that project because your donor, only thing I can guess, in my opinion, is that your donor told you to go support that. All right. Or told you to go look the other day way as it came out. And now we have this gigantic problem. And if you guys need more, the Daily Wire did a great discussion on Colony Ridge and what it is. All right. Um, you know, I like Mrs. Briscoe Kane. She's an awesome lady. But Mr. Briscoe Kane, he wants to kind of keep telling us about how he's the conservative and how he's this and how he's that. Here's the two things. He votes no on everything. He's another one that voted to flood Kingwood. And oh, by the way, he supported Colony Ridge and he supported impeaching Ken Paxton. So I know I have some of my precinct chairs that are out there that live out towards Crosby and that way that is would be part of his new district. Um, but I have to question this conservative for conservative name badge sake is meaningless and is pointless. And, actions speak louder than words. So if you're aligning with somebody that's supporting a Colony Ridge, if you're taking money, and I'll give you an example of something. This is, and I don't, this is not a Dan Crenshaw bad goods comment, but it just goes to show you character and what happens. You took a lot of money. Anybody takes a lot of money from somebody, and then you find out that they did something that hurt your district. Okay. In Crenshaw's case, he took donation from Perry Homes. And the second it came out that Perry Homes um, did a lot of things on that property that caused a lot of problems for us in his voting district, he returned the money. Um, I think that speaks to something. I actually see money being funded into this campaign. So, I don't, uh, so the people that are funded Colony Ridge seem to be funding this CD2 campaign. They gave money, millions of dollars to, I think, Ted Cruz. And now all of a sudden, Ted Cruz has decided he's got to come and tell everybody what he thinks CD2 should do. What I am going to tell Ted Cruz, though, is you pissed off KARW, and that's never a good thing. All right. So we're just going to leave that there and we'll see how this shakes out over time. But I have a lot of women in that group that said they will never vote for you again. So you should watch what you do and where you get involved because you can alienate people. All right. So that's my Harris County elections. But now I want to move to my friend Rodney Ellis, who's not my friend. Yesterday, the Harris County Commissioners Court voted to abolish um, the treasurer's position, the Harris County treasurer's position. First of all, it's an elected position, so I don't know how they can abolish an elected position, but I'm sure there's more to that somewhere that I don't know about. But if I move past that, what I would want to know and what I would want to say is that if you don't have a treasurer, who's watching the money? It's an oversight position. And if you don't have an oversight position, does that further breed corruption? And this is why I am going on to say, I've been working with Orlando Sanchez now for 6, 8 months or so. But when I look at this and I see this, I have to strongly say that you have to have a Republican and you need to get control of Commissioners Court so that there is not corruption. When we're taking away the safeguards and the rails on the people's money, that's somebody that's blatantly, he thinks nobody can touch him. He's Teflon. And as a result, you need somebody that's going to be able to stand up to him. So if I look at the people running for Harris County judge now, I think several of them are really nice people. I think one of them is in circle the one that doesn't belong because he's like union, he's labor, he's teachers. I don't know what the heck. That's a rhino. All right. He's voted in 2 Republican primaries in the last 25 years, 20 years, whatever it is. All those talking points aside, I got 3 people in that race that are extremely nice people. But when I come down to and I'm glad I've gotten to know some of them. The mayor of Piney Point is a very nice lady. I'm gonna give her all the props in the world. I love her story. Her story is somewhat very similar to mine. Came here, came as an immigrant, and has made it in this world. In fact, hers is even almost a lot more harsh than mine was because she escaped communist China. But when I look at this race, the only one that has the job experience to run the county, the governing experience to run the county, the financial experience to run the county is Orlando Sanchez. So, as much as I say I work with him, at the other side of the coin is I only worked with him because I felt like he was the right person for the job. It's all about having principles and doing the right thing. Um, and I really think if he doesn't win, we're going to end up with Democrat control, and Rodney Ellis is going to now have no safeguards around your money. We're in the middle of a primary. How do you remove a elected position that is on the ballot right now? I don't know how you do that. I also know that we've got Steve Raddick's out running against Leslie Briones as well. And although Leslie Briones has tried to stay center left, she still votes for the lunacy and the madness down with the Rodney Ellis wing of the party. The corruption has got to stop. And we have an impactful election coming up that we can vote in safeguards and get rid of the madness. And I think we should do that. And again, I really wholeheartedly think Orlando Sanchez is the only one that can beat Anise Parker. That I believe that to the bottom of my soul. And I also think he's the only one with the experience to unravel the mess. He's got the financial background to get the finances back in order. and he's got the experience within the city government to understand how this all works and how it works together so he can make impactful, meaningful changes on day one. So that's my Harris County election story. I want to touch on Iran this morning. There's not a lot of news coming in on it quite yet, but I think that the president saw an opportunity to again fix a problem. And I'm going to say this because you always frame your opinion, or at least you should, through your own experience in this world. And for me, I solve problems. If I don't solve problems, that if Iran was a problem, that's not a problem in my wheelhouse right now. But he saw an opportunity with the people of Iran rising up. And it shows that maybe that is destabilized, that the people are tired of living in oppression, and that maybe if we can take out somebody that's a direct threat to the country, to our country, and I know the word terrorist get overused. I mean, it's guerrilla warfare is really what it is. I mean, they infiltrate an area and then come and, attack it in one way, shape, or form. That's Hamas and that's Hezbollah and all of those H places. Um, I was listening to somebody last night talk about some of this, and they were actually talking about the Mujahideen. It's a word I hadn't heard since I've been in high school. But these are all groups of people that their goal, and again, this is understanding people and not always framing things through your own vision, which is, kind of coming back a little bit to this Abigail Spanberger speech. We put people through our own vision and we think that they operate the way we think they should operate, and we get disappointed when they don't. But if we had better history, and we had better teaching of history, we would understand what the Crusades were, and that the Muslims and the Christians in the Middle East have been fighting a religious war since before Jesus. Jesus only came and exacerbated the problem in that regard. We have a group of people in this world that their goal is to convert everybody to their side of the fence. They don't want, some of them don't want to live peaceably and coexist. They want to go in and take over places and make it be their place, which is why the Minnesota flag now looks like the Somali flag. And Hamtramck, Michigan has calls to prayer going out over the loudspeakers, and why we're talking about whether Sharia law should be a thing or not. I think most people, and we're a frog in boiling water as a culture, because we don't recognize that, or maybe we're arrogant because we don't recognize that there's people out there that don't like our culture. They don't like who we are. And we're not the preeminent say so over how they focus the world. They don't believe in women's rights. Men can walk around uncovered, women have to walk around in burqas. Gay people are not welcome in their society. So that's a thing. There seems to be no understanding that. I don't know if you think you're going to convert them to your side. You can't even convert the Republicans to your way of thinking. How are we going to convert the Muslims to your way of thinking? Um, Understand that we seem to have a whole anti-Semitic climate starting to come back up again. The annihilation of the Jews has been on the table since the time of Moses. So we're trying to apply modern standards without understanding the history of a circumstance. I appreciate Donald Trump trying to do something that will have a lasting impact. because you can't have the next guy come in and put $150 billion on a pallet in an airport and say, here, please don't blow us up. Because it's no different than appeasing your own kid who's having a temper tantrum. And every time you do it, the next temper tantrum gets worse. And I think these are the things that we need to look at and we need to look for and we need to understand. What I don't appreciate is when we have circumstances going like this. I got Elizabeth Warren already making TikTok videos and Tim Kaine making TikTok videos. Or I don't know where I saw him. She was making a video. He was talking. Everybody should get on the right page. And the reason you people are not told things ahead of time is because you don't know how to keep your mouth shut. If you were responsible and took your obligation to American citizens all the way back to the beginning, if you took your responsibility to American citizens seriously, you would not be in the predicament that you're in. You can't be cut in because you don't know when to shut up. And I think that's a really big problem. Your loyalty is not to the country first. Your loyalty is to your own brand and your own whatever. So we have half of the country, and actually, I think it's like 20% of the country. They just happen to have the apparatus and the mouthpieces, like Robert De Niro. He's on the TV every day crying on how he's embarrassed to be an American. There's an airplane, there's JFK. Get on it and go to Italy. Go live there if you don't like it here. Your last name's De Niro. I'm guessing you have to have some kind of maybe grandparent somewhere that you can qualify for an Italian citizenship. Go. I think Rosie O'Donnell's crying because we won't let her back. She went to Ireland to escape the tyranny. Now she wants to come back. I don't know what's going on with you guys, but you should love your country first and foremost, and you should want and if the president of the United States says this is what we need to do to make sure that we don't have nuclear missiles being lobbed at our country, then I'm going to go with that. If it's that we don't have them being lobbed at Israel, I'm going to go with that because I'm going to remind everybody that's so whatever. Israel was formed by the United Nations. It is an international uh, situation. It is not a one-off. So, I mean, I think the failure of history and education is part of the problem of why we have such non-common sense things going on. Iran cannot have a nuclear bomb because they are extremists. That's why they will always be extremists because they will always be fighting the Crusades. And I say the Crusades, but it really, to go all the way back in time, it goes back to Abraham and his two kids, tribes of Judah, the tribes of Ishmael. Okay? That's it. What it is 12 tribes here, 12 tribes there. They've been fighting forever. This is a religious war. And I think if I walked up to half the people in this country, they would have literally no idea what I was talking about. And that's how you end up losing when you don't know. You should always have an America First policy. I shouldn't need the president of the United States. And America First seems to be a dirty word. That needs to stop. Because we all should be American first. We should all want to succeed. We should want American exceptionalism. And we should stop the nonsense because we would have a whole lot better country if we all started rowing in the right direction or the same direction. Because right or wrong is not it. And we have an elitist bunch of people that want to tell us that they think, and it goes on both sides of the aisle. We got a lot of people that they can't make a good decision because Trump is the president. They couldn't make a good decision when Obama was the president because they were sycophants in the other direction. I think most of the Republicans and the middle of the road Democrats were all educated and we understand what's going on in this world. I think the fringes are what's hurting everybody. whether it be the fringes in Montgomery County that are, you're not pure enough, you didn't pass the conservative blood test, which should be fundamental. I don't, executive producer gets a little upset with me when I say that it's extreme Christians, because I do think that's a piece of it. Abortion should be illegal. Gay rights should be a thing. No, I mean, just if you understood the issues of it all. Um, there's so much more. So I think that's all I have to say today. I've said a lot, as always. I'm sure we'll have some sound bites, and I'll have somebody saying you're making weird little clips on TikTok or on Facebook. I think they don't understand there's a whole hour and a half podcast that's sitting out here that explains everything. Thank you for everybody for listening. I am going to say we're now over 2 million views, which I'm really kind of pleased with. I'm smiling about it. But I think most of you are with me in thought process. I want to be part of the 80%. I don't want to be part of the 20%. And by the way, I do have my Charlie Kirk shirt on today because I believe in freedom. And oh, by the way, somebody needs to go kick the people over at Turning Point because I think they're in some weird direction too. But I think some of the things that are happening, if Charlie Kirk was still here, they wouldn't be happening. But that's just my 2 cents on it all. Um, there's been a lot of strange endorsements handed out. We'll just leave it there, I guess. But anyway, have a good week. This is probably my last broadcast from this office. I'm moving offices, so I hopefully will have the nice, lush Kingwood trees behind me, and you'll be able to see them moving forward. So we had to get a bigger office for a bunch of reasons, but anyway, so we'll be moving this week, so I don't know how much we'll be around on this. But otherwise, I'll see you next week unless something big happens and I need to come and talk to you. We'll be covering the primary and what the fallout of it is. I'm, my opinion is Orlando Sanchez. My opinion is Dan Crenshaw. My opinion, and I have not said this before, but I'm gonna say it now, is needs to be Michelle Boussard. Um, we need big tent parties. We don't need exclusionary social clubs that are based on fundamental beliefs. And that's not what Cindy's doing. Don't misunderstand. I think she's done a great job of getting the party so far. I think it just needs somebody with a little bit more tenacity at this point um, to be able to handle it. But um, those are my three. Oh, and Wesley Hunt. There's a whole story with Wesley Hunt someday, but at the end of the day, Wesley Hunt is probably the right man for the job as Senate for the moment. And again, you have to think about November. I'm thinking about Ken Paxton against Jasmine Crockett. All right. Wesley Hunt can go take Jasmine Crockett down, and he can do it in ways that Paxton never can do. So I hope we come out with a runoff that's Paxton Hunt. And then I'm going to stay Team Hunt because I think that's another one that's a biggie. So that's my point oh two for this week. Have a good one. Everybody go vote on Tuesday. If you haven't voted, Harris County needs you to vote. Kingwood needs you to vote. Flooding's on the ballot, and the sovereignty of Harris County is on the ballot. So go out, please go vote, and I will see you next week.